I want to talk about exploration. And I know that's just going trigger real quick. Nice little trigger right off the bat. But there is something actually to exploration happening in Star Citizen. And it might not be the exploration you want. We're literally in chat talking about transient jump points, which will be a thing. Let's go to that real quick. Jump points and exploring transient jump points and alternative ways into Star systems will be a thing in exploration. Listen in here. This is them in 2024 saying almost that exact thing.
We like to call in the narrative team the Swiss cheese approach to jump points, which are smaller access points to the main tunnel. Those will still be restricted by small, medium, and large. So basically, it opens up opportunities for smaller ships to kind of sneak their way through.
A transient jump point may only be able to be used once. It may be a little bit more permanent, but you can never tell how long does it last once you find it.
If people are looking to avoid scrutiny, we'll look for these sort of side routes to get into the jump point to bypass, security or customs or stuff like that.
So that's exploration potential, but that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is something I've been noticing over the last 6 months. And it's really just a continuation of the things they've been doing to build out this exploration profession kind of in front of our eyes pretty quietly, kind of slowly. The first big sign that we were looking at something exploration kind of focused starting was actually back in 2024 when they were talking about resources and finding resources. This is the way that they talk about finding resources here.
All raw materials you find in the verse will have a quality rating that's generated based on some rules. The same kind of rules you heard about from the Planet Tech team yesterday. You'll find the same material in many.
Now, we'll be talking about the rules that you heard about the Planet Tech team because that's literally this whole slide. This whole presentation was about how planets are being changed so that things will spawn in ways that you can actually expect and logically understand. Kind of like what explorers do, Like the whole, hey, there's probably another route to India. Maybe we should go the other way around the globe or this map or whatever and see what's over there. That's logic. You gotta have some of that to make good decisions when you're exploring. So going back to what he's saying about it.
Many places, but with varying qualities. So you might want to explore to find the best. Some
he said the word.
Materials that are already rare will be even more valuable if you can find them with high quality. But what's quality for? It's for item stats. Alongside quality, we're introducing a new item stat system to the game.
Okay, that's all we need to get from here, because honestly, the dots get connected. We've got crafting going into testing in like a few hours. This is crafting. Materials make for better crafting stuff. You can kind of see where it's headed. Now you go back to CitizenCon Direct just this year, and actually there's another mention here from a pretty high up dev that draws more focus to crafting.
And using those to craft items which are better than what they have currently in the game.
The first version is going to be primarily FPS items that you can craft, weapons and armor. For Star Citizen, crafting is our primary progression mechanic. Star Citizen isn't your standard MMO. We don't have levels. We have ships, we have gear, we have things that you create in the world, you perfect, you research, you improve, and those items, those ships, those vehicles, the armor and weapons, that's how you progress in Star Citizen.
So they keep drawing a bunch of emphasis to crafting, to what you need for crafting, and it's really starting to show that like they have an idea. They've centralized things, as was mentioned in chat. This wasn't something that was like talked about in the beginning of Star Citizen a lot. Crafting wasn't in those original documents. You know how we always go back to these like, oh, Star Citizen engineering document. And then I'll pull it up. Big old gotcha. I'll pull this up and be like, it's from 12 years ago. Look at all the stuff they were talking about back when they first started Star Citizen. See, it's part of the plan. Scope creep? No. And then Chris is like, we're not going to do crafting and levels and stuff like that. This is scope creep. I think it's solid. I think this is pretty healthy for the game, but it certainly came in later, and they have shifted so much of the game to focus on crafting, but so much of crafting then is focused on the materials. And those materials are so much focused on quality. You start to realize that they're like very much trying to shift the game in that direction.
Of higher quality. And once you take those materials to your crafting bench, the fabricator, you can use them to craft, and the different attributes will be increased based on the quality of the materials you use. It's not just iron ore anymore, it's iron ore of the quality that you know will get you the stats for the item that you desire. And it's not just mining, it's essentially every resource we can get our hands on.
To support this, we also need major changes to inventory so that all of these new resources that you're collecting, you can see what you have, you can order it better, you can...
We love a new inventory, but you got the idea there. Crafting is peak progression is very important to them. It is focused on the resources and the materials. It is a creator of exploration potential, and it is not just minerals. This is everything that we're collecting. All of these iron, these like ingots, the horns, the little things, the eggs that you pick up from the cows, like all the little things that you find are going to have some level of quality and importance to find the best versions of those things. We can see that they're building this cloud of importance around crafting and thus finding things for crafting. And then we go back to update like 4.5. This is not the first time they've made a move in this direction, but it is a very recent one, and I think one that's fresh in our minds, so I wanted to bring this up as an example. Scrolling down though, something that's actually mentioned as one of the main additions here, engineering gameplay, ship armor. Those are two big ones. Loot refresh, not as big, but scannable caves and harvestables, while not being a huge thing, I find kind of surprising to be on here, because when you scroll through the patch notes, it doesn't actually have its own section. Engineering has its own section. Armor has its own section. Loot refresh has a huge section for itself. But the caves and harvestables being scannable are just literally a single line right here. They were just like, we need something else to fill it out. Ooh, this is an interesting one. But I don't think that's a mistake. I think they're drawing emphasis to this. Caves and harvestables now appear via scanning. This is a bigger change than this one single line down here would say. And that's probably why it's all up here. But allowing caves to be scannable is monumental, because we've had points of interest in this game for a long time. They've been building derelicts, caves, outposts, various things that you actually can find if you fly around enough. But for the most part, it's like it's an aspect of exploration, but there is A, no way to find it, B, no way to mark it, and C, nothing to find there. Now they're starting to build things to find there with the loot, with the things that we can get, with the materials that you can mine, all that kind of stuff. But there still wasn't a way to find it. Now they're taking that away, finally. Years it's been that we've been able to scan, and you've just never been able to actually find these locations. So that's two problems down. Now there just need to be more of them, which, you know, Starkitect is a big part of that. But that's just one addition. Caves and harvestables now appear via scanning as a good one. In 4.3, I couldn't actually find the real patch note. Maybe it was in one of these. But at some point in the 4.3 branch, they also changed scanning to have a different effect on ships. So when you scan ships, you get different types of information. Again, telling us that they are focusing a little bit more on scanning, on how scanning works, and on the details of it, as opposed to just talking about it as we've done for such a long time. The next thing that I noticed was going on here is actually a 4.6 update. So this is 2 consecutive updates now where we're seeing scanning and the way that it interacts with the environment and resources change. This is another small one that has slipped in. It doesn't have a big notification of it, but if you look here, it does say that the HUD has now been updated to show scan results of salvage as wreckage. Not a huge update. Again, it's these kinds of small tweaks and polishing on scanning gameplay that I'm starting to think maybe is pointing towards something bigger happening in the near future. He also said in this update that they're increasing signatures for harvestables and minables by about double the amount, so you can find these things more easily. And we did see in the salvage gameplay we did over on the gameplay channel, because of you guys, it was easy to learn this. It's just easier now to define what you're scanning, what it is, all that kind of stuff. Starting to get more logical. starting to get more reliable. So I think that this cleaning up of the gameplay and the mechanics, the obvious growth of importance around finding certain things in the game and the need to find those certain things that's coming with crafting in just the next few hours, all of it points towards at least what I think of as exploration is coming into the game imminently. And that is finding the things that are valuable to other people. I know a lot of folks think of exploration as only finding things that nobody else has ever seen, but one man's wreckage is another's treasure. Like, you can't discount things just because people have found them and not wanted them. One of the things that I hate most about Civ 6 is when I go and I settle a city somewhere, and specifically don't settle in another place, and then as time goes on and we discover uranium and stuff, we realize, oh, maybe I should have settled there. There's actually good resources there. How stupid would it be to be like, well, people have gone by there before. No point in settling a city. No point in going there. Everybody knows everything that exists there and nobody needs it. I think it's a silly view of exploration. And I think if you are interested in exploring in Star Citizen, you should align with this as being the majority of the gameplay you'll be doing. And allow yourself to be surprised if they bring in some other stuff, because they haven't talked a lot about other stuff. And the more I see people talk about exploration and talk about how it wouldn't be possible in Star Citizen, the more I feel like, yeah, the way that you want to do it, maybe it's not. And it might be worth looking at Elite Dangerous, which does that kind of thing better. There's just one thing that is missing to make it all make sense. And that was the part that, well, as we said, there are methods to find these locations. There are things to find at these locations. And then there are ways to actually locate these locations. But there was one more point that I forgot I needed to go over here with you guys that will unlock exploration that we can't really do until they give us this functionality. And it was presented in 2023 at CitizenCon.
Maybe that one. Maybe that door looks interesting. Press T.
Hunting for blueprints too, yeah.
So, what we can do is set a marker, and we can customize the details of that marker. Now, what you'll notice as well is as we set markers, there's metadata that is encoded into each of these markers on top of the customized name that we can specify. So we can mark as many markers as we want in this map. And these are all saved to our data bank. And we can eventually share these markers and even sell these markers on the market.
Share them and sell them on the market. I don't know how much more clear exploration gameplay is than that. Find a cool outpost, find a nice drop of loot, shoot down a javelin, literally, and save the marker and sell it to a salvaging orc. Like, this is it. Finding resources, marking their locations, selling them to other people. And I feel like we're so close, but man, it felt like we've been so close since this presentation.
So the thing about this, we can't really talk about markers without mentioning data running.
I love how he just skips over exploration and is like, okay, but how about data running, huh? And then they don't give a lot of great information on data running here. Like, he says we're going into data running, but this is really what the exploration gameplay loop is going to consist of.
People might specialize in exploration, whereas perhaps a miner might specialize in the equipment, and they make investments in their equipment. So you, as an explorer, might be in the business of going around and exploring and finding locations that are very valuable to other professions. And the role of these markers are very important in coming up with the data. And so it's very important. We can basically, when you name your markers, you can make it as maybe obvious, or you can leave it a mystery. So you'll have, when you sell it on the market, you could get rated for how accurate the data is.
So somebody just asked, I actually think that's a really cool angle. Somebody asked, what if you sell the marker and in that time it gets scrapped and it's gone? there's a whole dynamic to that, right? What if normal exploration missions are basically you just get to a space station and that space station says, hey, we've got scan data for all of the moons and planets in this star system. We keep it up to date so that any player who comes here can download those maps and then they can go to the planets and they know where all the outposts are, right? This is a normal game function. They're not going to have all outposts visible to everyone in quantum travel, so we will have to go places and download maps. In fact, that is also something that is talked about right here. Yeah.
So our current objective, it's much more interesting if we can actually take this on the go. So let's download it to our data bank. As you'll notice, we now have the representation of the environment in the upper left corner of our visor.
So we see if this happens, but if it does, this is a really, 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 really powerful game mechanic.
Now, the thing that's really interesting to note at this point is not all environments will have such a convenient kiosk available. You may encounter run-down settlements, or you might come across a cave that no one else has ever set foot on before. What will happen in this instance is your radar will incrementally update your map, and it will incrementally reveal your environment and save that to your databank. So you kind of reveal it incrementally.
So that is another puzzle piece, right? Exploration is you going into a cave that might not be mapped and remapping it. So I'm thinking these space stations could easily have these very basic, repeatable exploration missions, a lot like what you have in Starfield. They tell you, hey, Daymar hasn't been scanned and updated in 2 hours. So you can go to Daymar, you can get scan data, you can turn it into that space station, and the space station will pay you based on how old that data is. Because that data actually matters. The resources are respawning on planets and moons, they're changing locations. So if you go and get data, let's say you go into a new star system, you scan a whole bunch of planets, you get the data, it takes you 4 days to get back to Stanton, you turn the data into this space station, they pay you 40% because it's 4 days old, you know? I don't know. These are all, I think, ways they can mix exploration into some very easy to do, repetitive styles of gameplay that matter and are interesting and function with all of the things they're showing us here. It's just a matter of them actually doing it. But I think this is where most of exploration is going to be. Getting these maps, updating these maps, finding resources, and selling them to the right people. Finding new stars and planets. Sorry, I don't know about all that. But as for what we're seeing right now, right here in building, potentially for this year, resource finding seems like the best bet. This has all been a walkthrough what I think exploration is shaping up to be, potentially in the next few months. We got to see what happens with crafting, with the way that they do resource quality, how they're scattering that stuff, if it works correctly, and then obviously map markers are the last big part. But we'll see. We'll touch back on this when we can. Hope you got some info from this one.